Değerli konuklar, Sayın Profesör Andreas Filipopoulos, hoş geldiniz. 4. Uluslararası Taner Yelkenci Hukuk ve Devlet Teorisi Sempozyumu Hukuk Devri paneline başlıyoruz. Ben konuşmaya başlamadan önce Filipopoulos, bir kendisini tanıtmak istiyorum. Kendisi Westminster Üniversitesi'nde profesör olarak çalışmakta. Çalışma alanları arasında eleştirel hukuk çalışmaları, sosyo hukuk çalışmaları, çevre hukuku, mekansal adalet gibi konular bulunuyor. Kitapları arasında da hukuk ve şehir, Niklas Luhmann üzerine bir çalışması var. Hukuk ve ekoloji, mekansal adalet üzerine bir derlemesi var. Ve kendisi bugün bize mekansal adalet ve direniş üzerine bir sunum yapacak.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, good. So it's very interesting to hear your name amidst a sea of words you don't understand. And I'm sure they're all good stuff, and thank you so much. And thank you very much for this very kind invitation. I'm really, I think I'm very honored to be here, not only because of the somehow the special relationship that I always felt with Turkey, not only because of my Greek origins, but also because of the very particular political struggles that somehow in Turkey seem to characterize pretty much the rest of the world. It seems to be a bit of an example of political struggle and political dispute that informs greatly the rest of the world and the rest of the world's politics. We are pretty much in a hot spot of exchange of ideology and political positions that reflect the rest of the world. Turkey and its connection to Europe is of particular interest because of its inside-outside regime. And I think quite a lot of the stuff that happened in Turkey mirrors the problems of Europe. And especially recently, I think I'm not going to talk about that, but unfortunately it is very much in my mind, is what we can probably call the failure of the European project. And we have seen it with the way that they dealt with the South, and we now see it with the way they've been dealing with the refugee crisis. And Turkey, of course, is a very odd actor in this battle. So I'm actually very pleased to be here, and I have been talking. I gave a talk in Istanbul, and I've met some wonderful people, and I've already met some extraordinary people here. Shall I eat it? Right? Okay. I've met some wonderful people here as well, and I'm hoping to meet the majority of you. And please come and say hello and tell me who you are. What I'd like to talk about today is a little bit. I'm going to create a little bit of a story about a concept that's very close to my heart, and it's the concept of spatial justice. This paper is sort of I suppose it's sort of a reflection or a resume of my penultimate book called Spatial Justice. And in a way, I'll give you the summary here, so you don't need to buy the book. But if you want to, I can send you the PDF. So please email me, and I'll happily send you the PDF. The idea of spatial justice is a thing that I've been struggling with for a while, and I'm going to share a little bit of the struggle with you. It's a paper that's fundamentally lots of things. If you are a Lumanian, you can see it, you can hear it, you can read it as a paper based on Niklas Luhmann theory. If you are a Spinozan, which I'm hoping I'm going to honor Yalınç's name and and carry on with a certain Spinozan vein, you will see that the whole paper is Spinozan. Yeah. Shall I carry on? If you are Deleuzian, then that's quite easy because this is an explicitly Deleuzian paper. So what I am trying to do is use various theories, but in a way without absolutely naming them. So please dip in and out. Is this speed of talking okay? Can you follow me? So shall I carry on like that? Because I see that quite a lot of people are not using these. So good, thank you. So, as I said, I would like to invite you to a slightly different space, or perhaps a slightly different way of seeing space. I want to work with you on a different kind of concept of spatiality, that is, the concept or the understanding of space. And I want to focus on the idea of the violence of space, the inherent violence of space. In order to do that, I'm going to talk about a few concepts. The first one, which perhaps is maybe the hardest for our translators, is the lawscape. And the lawscape is a term that I've made up, and what do we do in our spare time? We make up words and terms. So I made up this term, but in frustration. That was back in 1997, when I was trying to understand the connection, indeed, between law and space. And I came up with this term, lawscape. And I imagined the lawscape a little bit as the ontological and tautological connection between law and space. I was trying to think of space without law, and I couldn't think of anything. I was trying to think of law, which is aspatial, that is without space, and I still couldn't think of any law like that. So I came up with this concept of lawscape. If I could do it now, I would have changed it. Because the lawscape is a lot about, it sounds a little bit like landscape, right? So this idea of seeing something, the landscape or the image of the area, and it has a lot to do with vision. But what I'm doing here is not about vision. It's about other affects, other ways of informing and immersing oneself into it. But I will talk a little bit about this. The second concept is the concept of atmosphere. Atmosphere is a concept that has been popularized by philosophy and architecture, and recently by other disciplines as well, such as sociology, even finance or economic theory. And atmospherics refer to both, the way that I'm using it in my work, is both about the geological aspect of an atmosphere, the atmosphere of the Earth, as well as other kinds of atmospheres, such as the atmosphere of this room. And we say that this room has a nice atmosphere and we feel comfortable whenever it is here. With this, we're going to move into the concept of spatial justice, so you have to wait a little bit for this, and I'll explain when we get there what it is. And then the final thing, and perhaps the most important thing, is the concept of withdrawal. And withdrawal is a particularly important concept for my work because I conceptualize it both as a concept, but very much as a gesture, as a body gesture, as a body that moves into space and creates different spaces while withdrawing. I hasten to add that withdrawal is not a passive gesture. It's not a moving away from the conflict. It's not giving priority to the other. It is not about that. It's a purely, shall I say, schizophrenic moment of resistance. And it leads to perhaps unpredicted consequences. But I think at the times that we are everywhere, concepts of strategy are constantly fading. Ways of organizing ourselves according to the traditional, so more traditional understandings of solidarity are collapsing. We need more radical gestures. And these gestures are not gestures that can be built on what Luhmann used to say, the old semantics. We need to think of different ways of responding to what is happening through us. So let me start by essentially introducing you to this. I've been working with some Polish artists for the Venice Biennale of last year, and also the Wrocław Cultural Capital of Europe. And this is the exhibition that opened the show, the Cultural Capital of Europe in Poland. And this particular work by Sadekowski is a particularly powerful, I think, depiction of a world that we think that we know, but we are being completely and constantly lacerated by it. We're completely and constantly cut up into pieces, and our opportunities to get together in solidarity are being constantly, basically, dressed in red, in blood. The work that he does reminds me very much of a concept that I'm trying to use these days, and this is the concept of a continuum. Now, the continuum is a particular concept that comes from essentially Deleuzian, Spinoza, and other Jane Benner's more recent attempts at defining it. But my continuum is not all that. It's a well-wishing, not a well-wishing, culturally relative flat ontology. But it's a tilted, it's a power-structured surface on which bodies move, rest, and position themselves, affecting the tilt while being affected by it. So the way the bodies move on this continuum, we are all in a continuum. We, and when I say we, I don't mean just humans. We and my microphone here are part of an assemblage. Me and this computer here is part of an assemblage. You and I, we're part of an assemblage. We are in a way together, but also very different. We're being pulled apart constantly. Our connections are constantly mediated by technology, by atmospherics, by mood, by language. So all these things are ways in which the continuum comes together, and these bodies come together, but at the same time, it is not what more contemporary understandings of ontology talk about flat ontology. So Bruno Latour describes this ANT network as all connected moments of essentially of ontological equality. What I'm interested in is this surface. Imagine this surface, this continuum that is tilted. It goes like that. Stronger bodies pull the continuum down. Lighter bodies are being displaced by the continuum. So the stronger the body is, the harder it is to deal with these bodies. So a corporation is much stronger than me. A lorry that comes on the road while I walk and hits me is much stronger than me. So my continuum with the lorry is still there, but it's tilted. So if the lorry hits me, I'm dead, probably. So goodbye, continuum. But continuum also has certain qualities. It's not just about being one thing, but it's constantly ruptured. So there are no limits to the continuum. The continuum is something infinite, and it has no outside. And I think this is perhaps the most important part of the continuum. But at the same time, we need to construct these limits. We need to construct boundaries. So am handelt Welt, the boundary of the world, is where we kind of play to the end of the continuum, but there is no end to the continuum. The more we go, the more we discover. And ruptures are ways in which we make the continuum livable. Our house, for example, the fact that we can lock the door and exclude other people, that's a rupture. The fact that we close that door and we say only the ones who are invited or who wanted to come in here are accepted in here. This is also a rupture. We need these ruptures. At the same time, a rupture is saying that this is Europe and it's not Syria, and we don't want the it's a way of saying I'm better than you are because I'm middle class and you're the proletariat. So you see what I'm trying to say? The ruptures are not neutral things. Rather, they in the sense they're not either good or bad. They're used in all sorts of ways, and they sort of create these differences that most of the time are necessary, but quite often they lead to problematic consequences. So this was the beginning. the continuum, which is a continuous rupture, is constantly cut out. On that continuum, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the concept of the lawscape. So the lawscape is, visually speaking, a bit like this statue. This statue is by Bernini in Rome. I don't know if you've ever been to the Church of Santa Teresa in Rome. And that particular thing is called the ecstasy of Santa Teresa. Santa Teresa is having an ecstasy here also because I didn't put it in the photograph. There's an angel up there putting a little arrow in her heart and piercing her heart with the arrow. What I'm really interested in, and there's a lot of writing about this text, Lacan, for example, famously said, if you want to see female orgasm, you have to go to Rome to see it. I mean, if Lacan had to go to Rome to see a female orgasm, he has our sympathy, of course. But at the same time, there was a kind of a very interesting thing about how everything was somehow focused on the human, on the representation, but nothing on the actual drape. Because the drape is, for me, the most important part of this statue. The way that the drape becomes a bit like contemporary quantum representations, quantum understandings of space. So space is not linear, it's not consequential, but it's folded and constantly interfolded. It comes and goes into waves, and it becomes different as you move into these things. So imagine like the continuum was wrapped up and scratched like that, and all these ways in which we move from space, from different spaces, are essentially what I've called, following the Lesinger theory, the manifold. So the lawscape is the manifold. What does that mean? We are now in a lawscape. How do we know that? Well, how do we know that? This is a normal space, and we sit around, you listen to me, right? And you kind of, some of you listen to me, some of you are very bored. It's cool, that's part of the game and all that stuff. However, when we try to think about where is the law around here, the initial impression would be, well, there isn't much law around here, is there? I mean, there's no police, right? There's no whatever it is, like there's nothing like that. However, if you think a little bit closer, let's start with this very simple idea of how we're sitting here speaking to you, and there is a very specific setup. You cannot, even if you wished, and I wish you did, at some point get up and come here and sit next to me, just like that, just for fun, why not? You wouldn't do that. Yeah, but now I told you, see, it doesn't count now. There's no way that we can easily change these hierarchies. At the same time, dig a little bit deeper. There's the structure of the place reflects a certain historicity, but at the same time reflects a certain need, current need. Now this thing has been sort of accessorized with electricity. So we know that this particular institution has been paying its electricity bill. We know that there is a contract referred to the chairs, so you're comfortably sitting. So what are these chairs? These chairs are not just something that you found there in a competition or something like that in order to acquire these chairs. So what I'm trying to say is that the law is pretty much everywhere. Just scratch the surface, and you find not just contractual understandings of law, but social norms, ways of behaving, ways of stopping us from behaving in a certain way. So the lawscape is this ontological as well as epistemological tautology between law on the one hand in its greatest, most broadest understanding, and space. Again, space though in its manifold understanding. So this space is not just this space. This space it will have a digital presence, I presume. It has a different understanding of reverberation. What we talk about here might carry the word somewhere else and carry a certain affect differently. So briefly, the lawscape has a few characteristics. The first one is, and I'm going to go quite briefly through these. The first one is that the lawscape is post-human. When I say about post-human, I'm sure you know what I mean, but I will go through it very quickly. The concept of the post-human is that the human is no longer what we thought to be. So it's no longer the golden age of the Enlightenment, the golden middle of the Enlightenment, where there was a man of European, white, of a certain age, of a certain sexuality, of a certain property status, who can think rationally. This is the kind of enlightenment humanity that we had in mind, and it was the measure of a lot of things. But we now know that we are no longer humans, but we are all post-humans. Who of us doesn't know, or rather can deal with being without their little mobile phone, or without our laptops, or without different kinds of things? Even medicine is part of post-humanity. Various technologies are part of post-humanity. Animality is part of post-humanity. So the post-human is essentially an extension of the human in ways that do not fit with the classical understanding of the Enlightenment. The second understanding of the lawscape is that it's immanent. That means that there is no outside to the lawscape. And as I told you, I would please challenge you to think of a space without law and a law without space. There is a law that is not spatialized. It does not take place. Or a space that is devoid of law. And when I said law, I meant in the broadest possible category. Yes, I've been trying to find something like that. And the final thing that is the lawscape is fractal. That is, there is one lawscape. This lawscape keeps on repeating itself in various scales. So this is a lawscape, but then this city, Izmit, is a lawscape. And Izmit is part of a larger lawscape, which is Turkey, is part of a larger lawscape, which is Europe and Asia, etc., etc. So there are various kinds of lawscapes and various transversalities of the lawscape. With this, I want to go to the main characteristic of the lawscape, and this is its ability to invisibilize itself. So the lawscape keeps on making itself visible or invisible, depending on the needs. If you go into a shopping mall, you don't want the law around you. You want to feel safe, but you want the law to disappear. You don't want to be reminded constantly of the fact you're spending a lot of money, so you're using a credit card. You don't want to remind yourself that you're actually doing something which requires a transaction. So in contemporary shopping malls everywhere around the world, obviously there's a way of doing it, there are no longer doors between the corridors of the shopping malls and the shops. So you walk through those places. It's a bit like an airport. And it is indeed the airport. Imagine that moment, you go to the airport and you go through security. Security is the absolute visualization of the lawscape. They want you to know that you're being watched. Everything that you do, or every part of your body, is being radiated through knowledge, through digital knowledge or other kind of dispositives that lead to the knowledge of the body, and to not just knowledge of the body, but the categorization, the listing of the body, etc. But what happens once you come out of those horrible spaces of control? Where do you end up? Into paradise, into duty-free. It's amazing. Then you're free, right? You know, from these little moments of kind of, limits and barriers, you kind of slide out into this beauty where chocolates are triangular, where everything is kind of up for grabs, and you can actually just buy little things here and there, and perfume is free. Isn't that lovely? So this is exactly when the lawscape invisibilizes itself. So from pure, full visibilization, it goes to partial, at least, invisibilization. I say partial because there are always things to do. There are like things where you have to run to the gates and you have to produce your passport, etc. But this game is a particular game of the lawscape. And when we are in the lawscape, we always are in the lawscape, we're part of the lawscape, we always manage to use this invisibilization. We choose to do that sometimes. We don't want to be reminded of the law all the time. If we were to be reminded of the law all the time, we would be living a little bit like, have you seen the film Matrix? The first Matrix. Have you seen it? Yeah? So, do you know that bit where reality collapses and is replaced by a code? Where everything, so all the things, objects, are disappearing. And the only thing you have is a code, I think it's a green code, running down on a black screen. So that's exactly the moment of the visualization, the total visualization of the lawscape. You are just a legal subject, and you don't have freedom. The freedom is determined, predetermined. So this is Spinoza at its full visible, at its full bursting the seams of difficulty. Because it is a difficult thing. So we we rupture it. We keep on putting little things. A credit card is a rupture. We put a distance between us and whatever the other thing is. We invisibilize ourselves, the lawscape. Now, every lawscape wants to become an atmosphere. This is the second part of, or the second concept I'm going to be dealing with. Every lawscape at its best, and I'll explain what best is, wants to turn into this round thing, a round atmospherics of comfort, of belonging, of understanding the movement. An atmosphere is a particularly interesting thing, because we talk about comfortable atmospheres, but we also talk about atmospheres of conflict. We talk about protest having a particular atmosphere, and that atmosphere conditions us, conditions our mood to be part of it. So this atmosphere is one of, I don't know, like scholarly engagement, let's say. If somebody, again, I'm inviting you to break the atmosphere, but if somebody were to start screaming, or start doing something and playing music or whatever, or something happened, the atmosphere would change completely. It would become a different thing. Atmospheres are moved from one thing to the other, but we, our bodies, are complicit to the atmosphere. So the atmospheres are not things that are imposed on us. Partly yes, but mainly they rely on our ability, on our desire to be part of the atmosphere. So to be part of an atmosphere is a particularly demanding thing, because at the same time requires a desire to belong, to be part of an atmospherics of closure. There is an enclosure in the atmosphere. And it also needs an exclusion, others who do not belong to the atmosphere, other actions, other bodies, other movements that do not belong to the atmosphere. So atmosphere is a moment of the absolute invisibilization of the lawscape. The lawscape disappears. In an atmosphere, there is no law. The only thing that there is what the atmosphere wants you to think. Comfort, belonging, community, solidarity, or consumerism, or capitalism, or Europe. Atmospherics are fractal constructions that can operate on all sorts of levels. Atmospherics are always spatially located. They're always a particular space in atmosphere. And they work with concepts of affects, with ways in which affects move around. I'm just quoting Jean-François Lyotard here, where he talks in the libidinal economy that there is nothing but skin on the inside and the outside. There's only one monophase surface. The libidinal body is a Möbius strip. A Möbius strip means that it's changing like that. So the inside and the outside are interchangeable. When we are inside the atmosphere, we feel that the atmosphere covers the world. Every atmosphere is a universal. Lyotard uses the concept of affect, and he applies it specifically to the way capitalism moves affects, desires to have and to be and to become in such a way that everything becomes back in the service of the libidinal economy. So libidinal economy in the sense of the primordial desire to be part of economy. This is the most irresistible quality of capitalism, is desire. And this is exactly what Deleuze and others have been talking about when they were talking about the connection between capitalism and our specific desire. And then we think with Foucault, our self-policing with regards to this desire. So if somebody goes against our desire to be part of the atmospherics, if somebody goes against our desire to stay in a gated community, we excommunicate them. We don't like them anymore because they interrupt us, they rupture us, they rupture the atmosphere. So the way I would like to define atmosphere is as a floating ontology of excess. What I mean by that is a sense of affective excess that keeps bodies together by, through, and against each other. So the bodies are kept in atmospheres because they want to be part of an atmosphere. If the bodies did not want to be part of an atmosphere, then the atmosphere would have been ruptured, would have been a different atmosphere. So these affects keep these bodies together. I'll explain in a minute what affects are. They come from Spinoza, and then Deleuze and Guattari have taken them up, and then several other thinkers. This is the basic definition by Spinoza, is the affections of the body by which the body's power of acting is increased or diminished, helped or hindered. So an affect is an informational, emotional, as well as corporeal, let's say, movement that determines the connection between various bodies. So one body is stronger than another body, as we said, and hence the tilted continuum. But then affects have been taken up, as I said, by Deleuze and Guattari, and they talked about the affect as the human's non-human becoming. So it's exactly the excess of affect. My human affects become my digitalized voices. My human effects become later on translated into another language and it comes into your ears. These are things I cannot control. I have no idea what is happening there. This is just one very simple example, but we do that all the time. The way we move around, we have no idea how we displace these things. This is the classic chaos theory, causality. But it's just other kinds of causality, endocausality, reversible causality, etc. All these different kinds of causalities that take us away from the classic understanding of what causality is, and moves us into a land of excess, where control is no longer relevant, where the excess controls the affects. And another definition that affects go beyond the strength of those who undergo them. And that's exactly the excess. I cannot control it. The affects might start from a body, whatever this body is, human or non-human, or an assemblage between human and non-human. But then they go beyond those who undergo them. So, atmosphere is a particular thing because it uses affects in a particular way. This is the work of Thomas Saracino. You might know him. He's an Argentinian international installation artist. And we have collaborated on a monument to the Anthropocene that Bruno Latour asked us to produce, which has been launched in Toulouse last year. And the monument to the Anthropocene is, and you probably know what the Anthropocene is. The Anthropocene is the geological era where the human has left his or her traces on the geological strata of the Earth. So by now, we can see that humans are the only species that have influenced, that have affected the geology of the Earth. And this is either through pollution, of course, or through structures, through movement, through technology, etc. And it's a very contested term, of course, both scientifically in terms of geology, they haven't decided yet whether it's true or not, but also in terms of the responsibility that comes with it. Now, Thomas Saracino works with these bubbles of plastic or glass, which for me are not representation, but are the perfect atmospherics. So he puts either, as you see in this case, grass, water, or nothing in it. But the point is that it encloses the air. It constructs a partition of the air into a bubble. And the way that the air circulation operates inside is through the heat that comes from the outside. So this is transparent, so you can see that the heat from the sun or whatever it is that is exposed to is part of the atmosphere, but still apart. So it is together, but then it's somehow put aside. And this circularity is what interests me, because atmosphere fixes the lawscape by directing desire in a circular way in order to reinforce the very atmosphere. Everything in the atmosphere is circular. Whatever we do, however we desire, whatever affects we have, are part of the surface of the atmosphere. And some atmospheres are so good that register descent as well as part of the atmosphere. So the atmosphere can contain, in both terms, contain as in having in, but as in contain as in control, the atmospherics, the way that the desire is being played out in the atmosphere. So everything is part of the circularity of the atmosphere. So we end up precisely with this definition that I'm going to repeat, that atmosphere is the excess of affect that keeps bodies together and what emerges when bodies are held together by, through, and against each other. And there are three conditions of constructing an atmosphere. The first one is a clear definition, a clear distinction between inside and outside. Think of gated communities. Think of these communities, say in South Africa, where there's a wall that separates the wealthy, middle class, tennis playing, white residents from the outside. This is the moment of the atmospherics, the creation of atmospherics, the perfect division between inside and outside. However, in a Luhmannian move, the outside is included inside. So the outside has to be somehow filtered inside. How? Leaving the gate ajar, half open, you can just about see the black thread outside. You can just about see the African, the native African, who might want to come in and take your swimming pool. So all of a sudden, the atmosphere becomes a question of real boundaries, of how the inside is separate, but we have to be reminded of the threat of the outside. This is Peter Sloterdijk talking about an enclosure so spacious that one would never have to leave it. It's an enclosure that doesn't need departure, it doesn't need an outside. And the third condition is an impression of synthesis. That's a pseudo-Hegelian movement, where everything becomes one, which means that everything is what ought to have been. And we are lucky because we live the best possible world. We are here in the present of upheaval. We are witnessing the moment where the inside and the outside has become into this perfect synthesis. I'm being ironic, I hope that's clear. So the impression of synthesis is a particular importance. As Reza Najariani says, we distill all cosmic processes into one unified body, cyclically open. So there is this idea of we have reached that moment where atmosphere needs nothing but the present. It freezes everything into the present. There is no future. There is no possibility of changing the present. What's the point of trying to do anything else? It's what we have. We have given up, sometimes willingly, sometimes unwillingly, but resignedly. This is what we see in Europe now. This is how we see social movements thinking, well, how? What are we going to do? This is the atmospherics. The atmospherics is that we've reached that point where everything has found its place in a way. We are unhappy with it, but we can't move away from it. And with this we move to the final movement, and that's the concept of spatial justice. So spatial justice is not an answer, and it's not a solution. It is a question that emerges when a body desires to move into the space of another body. When I want to, say, take somebody's place in there, so say I want to move into Haydar's place, and I want to sit exactly where he's sitting at exactly the same time. How am I going to do that? By pushing him out. I cannot sit on him. I could sit on him, but that would not be the same thing. He would still have his own place, and I will have a place on top of him. This is the violence of space. The violence of space is that everybody occupies a specific space for a particular time. No two bodies can occupy the same space at the same time, which means that whichever space one occupies, other bodies are excluded and displaced from that particular space. The question of spatial justice is in the heart of pretty much any geopolitical, political, ecological, even philosophical conflict. It's a kind of thing that determines how bodies move with each other and how they play the same space at the same time. And this happens all the time. So special justice emerges when the desire to displace another body and come into it emerges. So there is no solution, but there is a moment of withdrawal. And this I'm taking it from the legislatory when they speak in a Nietzschean way. We have to withdraw. Withdrawal freaks, and it's a cry. It's a cry, it's a revolutionary cry. For the legislatory, the schizo is the one, and again quoting Nietzsche, is the one who, by moving away from whatever the moment is, by withdrawing from the moment, he or she also takes the parapet with her, the parapet of the regime, the parapet of whatever that moment, the stability of the atmosphere is. So withdrawal is a movement away from atmospherics, which means is a movement away from our very own desire to be part of an atmosphere. And we move into another space, and that other space is pretty much impossible to know. It's pretty much impossible to plan. Spatial justice emerges when a withdrawing body passes into a differently oriented space, in which the register of conflict might change. Might. There is no prescription. But say you do that, right? You move to another space. You move to a differently oriented space. And then you stop. And that's when you freeze. And that's when atmospherics commence again. So atmospheres are always here, and they're always there when we stop moving. Spatial justice is the urge to keep on moving, to keep on rupturing. And it's a continuum, it's a repetition. It cannot be just once, it has to be repeated. And it has to be repeated to the nth degree. So what we end up with is exactly the lawscape. From the movement away from atmosphere, the only place that one can land, if one wants to pursue the concept of spatial justice, is again the lawscape. But a different, perhaps, lawscape. A lawscape that has not relinquished the law. A law that is always there, in a space that is always there, but perhaps a slightly different lawscape where we can play differently with the mechanics of visibilization and invisibilization, where we have a maneuvering space to do these, rather than the asphyxiating commodity, in the sense of both comfort and commodity, of atmospheres. So what we end up, hopefully, is a lawscape that one can reorient, or that it indeed itself reorients and changes us with it. Only, of course, to land onto another atmosphere, and then another need to carry on moving. Thank you.
Thank you for your remarkable speech. Now we are going to take questions from audience, if it's okay for you.
Thanks for oh, sorry. I'm very softly spoken, so this might be necessary. Thanks for a great presentation and really interesting thoughts of all kinds. There was now better?
Yes.
I'm almost tempted to sing my question. There's a moment of unclarity, at least if I've understood you.
Oh, good.
correctly. Now, you continuously refer to lawscapes and atmospheres as things that are endowed with a will. You continually refer to lawscapes wanting to become atmospheres, bodies wanting to, etc., etc. This immediately begs the question of who's behind all these elements, for lack of a better word. What agency is there? Would it not be a much more political take, in that sense, to go for the agency behind these constructs? It's a little bit similar to the mentioning of the Matrix. In this film, exactly, we're invited to believe that the Matrix is the Matrix. The Matrix is nothing. There's nothing behind it. Ultimately, there's no who behind the Matrix. This limits the political possibilities for alternative futures so radically. This is the kind of ambiguity, or one of them in the film, apart from all the other problems I mentioned. Okay, so I'll leave it there. Maybe there's time for us.
Thank you. Yes, all that. And I think my project is to politicize the ontology beyond human agency. Unfortunately, I'm a little disillusioned by the idea of who is behind. I don't think that anyone is behind. I think we are behind. And we are both behind and the front. We are all complicit with the atmosphere. And the atmosphere has its own agentic ontology. The atmosphere is an excess. If we think we can control the atmospheres, we can carry on with the old politics. The old politics lead here. It's not a very good place to be. The politics I'm interested in is one of cold showers. It's one of very limited, if any, freedom. It's one of absence of personal will. It's a bleak Spinozan world there, but for me this is the politics that carry the real potential for emancipation. The old politics of believing in the personal will and thinking of conspiracies behind the parapet. I don't want to be dismissive, but I find them romantic. And that's exactly Hollywood stuff. We need a hero, and the hero will come and save us, and we can all be heroes. Nonsense. We're not heroes, there are very few heroes, and these heroes are never solitary. They are part of a wave, not a multitude.